Have you ever found yourself sitting quietly, watching life rush by, feeling like time is slipping through your fingers? The years pass and suddenly your body doesn't feel as agile. Your energy doesn't seem as boundless, and you start wondering, is this it? Is this what getting older really means? But here's the truth. Aging doesn't have to be a decline. In fact, it can be a time of profound growth, a time to reclaim your peace, purpose, and joy. I'll tell you a story that changed my perspective completely. A few years ago, I was in the park, sitting on a bench, feeling the weight of time on my shoulders. That's when I saw him, an elderly man, probably in his 82nd, tossing a frisbee with his grandchild, laughing so freely, so joyfully, that he seemed no older than 20. In that moment, something clicked for me. Aging isn't about slowing down. It's about embracing life in a smarter, more meaningful way. It's about living with more joy, clarity, and purpose. So, let's be real for a moment. Most people dread getting older. We fear losing our vitality, our strength, our sense of adventure. But what if, instead of viewing aging as a loss, we saw it as an opportunity to cultivate wisdom, inner peace, and lasting happiness? This is where Buddhist philosophy comes in. Buddhism teaches us that growing older isn't something to fear. It's an invitation to live more mindfully, more authentically. Today, I'm going to share with you 8 essential tips inspired by Buddhist wisdom that will not just help you survive in your later years, but truly thrive. These are simple practices rooted in the timeless teachings of Buddhism that will guide you toward a life filled with peace, strength, and fulfillment. And trust me, if you apply these principles, you'll find that the best years of your life could very well be ahead of you. Are you ready to embrace a new way of living in your later years? Let's dive in. Tip number 1. Walk your way to strength. Walking is a path to mindfulness. There's something truly magical about walking. It's not just a physical activity, it's a journey of the soul. I remember the first time I laced up my shoes and stepped out into the world for a walk, not knowing where it would take me. I was hesitant at first. My body felt heavy, my steps slow, and the thought of exerting myself made me question if I was really up for it. But then something remarkable happened. As I walked through my neighborhood, I could feel my breath steadying, my mind beginning to quiet. Each step, each breath brought me closer to the present moment, something I hadn't experienced in such a long time. I began to notice the small details, the rustling of the trees, the way the light fell through the leaves, the chirp of birds I had never really heard before. And it was in that stillness, in those moments of simply walking and being, that I realized this wasn't just exercise, it was meditation in motion. In Buddhism, walking meditation is often practiced to center the mind and body, grounding oneself in the present moment. The Buddha himself was a wanderer, someone who walked tirelessly to spread his teachings. His steps were not just physical, they were symbolic of the journey we all take in life, one step at a time. Every time we move forward, whether on a path or in life, we are moving toward greater clarity, toward mindfulness, and ultimately toward wisdom. You don't need to walk miles to experience this. I found that even a short walk, just 10 or 15 minutes around the block, can transform your mind. Walking helps you release the clutter in your thoughts, clear the heaviness in your chest, and invites you to simply be. With each step, you're training your body and your mind to become more resilient, more grounded, and more at peace with yourself. I recall a story about an elderly woman I met at a temple retreat who shared how her daily walk had become her sanctuary. She spoke of how her legs felt weaker as the years went by, but it was through walking that she had gained not just physical strength but emotional resilience. She said, Walking is where I find my peace. When my body moves, my mind follows. Her words stayed with me because they reflected the essence of Buddhist teachings. The body and mind are deeply connected, and every mindful step we take is a step toward inner harmony. So don't worry if your legs are a little slower than they used to be. Don't be concerned about the distance you're walking. What matters is your intention. Walk with purpose. Walk with presence. Each step, no matter how small, is a step toward living with more mindfulness. And in that quiet rhythm, you will find strength not just in your legs but in your heart. How are you walking through life? What does each step represent for you? Tip number 2, eat like you love yourself. Nourishment from the heart. As we age, we begin to realize that the way we treat our bodies matters more than ever. I can still recall the day I made the decision to change the way I ate, not because I had to, but because I realized I deserved better. For years, I'd eaten out of convenience, grabbing whatever was fast, whatever was easy. Chips, soda, those little snacks that gave me a brief moment of satisfaction. But deep down, I knew these choices were leaving me feeling drained and sluggish. It was only when I began to cook a simple pot of soup from fresh vegetables that I truly felt the shift. I remember that soup vividly. The warmth, the color of the veggies, the act of preparing something nourishing for myself. It wasn't just about food, it was a reminder that I was worthy of the care I'd been neglecting. In Buddhist philosophy, food is seen as not just sustenance but a form of offering, a way to honor the body as a vessel for our consciousness. Just like the Buddha taught about moderation and balance, eating with mindfulness allows us to cultivate gratitude for our bodies, respecting them as temples that house our spirit. The practice of mindful eating is powerful. It's about bringing awareness to what you eat, how you eat, and how it makes you feel. When you eat, slow down. Notice the textures, the flavors, the colors. Feel the nourishment. Imagine you're eating not to fill a void, but to honor your body, giving it the fuel it needs to continue on its journey. I've learned that eating with love, with intention, transforms the whole experience. It's no longer about quick fixes, but about creating a relationship with food that supports my well-being in a deep and meaningful way. I think of the time I met an elderly monk at a meditation retreat. His face was serene, his body strong despite his age. When asked about his health, he simply smiled and said, "Food is my medicine. When I eat, I honor the life that feeds me. I eat in balance, in gratitude." His words struck me as they reflected a wisdom we often overlook. Food in its simplest form is an act of love. The more mindful and intentional we are about what we eat, the more we honor ourselves and our journey. If you're feeling disconnected from your body or your food, try taking small steps to shift your habits. Add a handful of spinach to your meal or choose water over juice. Each little act is a gesture of love toward yourself, a way to reconnect with your body and nourish it with kindness. What does the food you eat tell you about how you view yourself? Do you eat with intention or out of habit? Reflect on your relationship with food and see if there's a way you can bring more love and mindfulness to each meal. Tip number 3, laugh often. The healing power of joy. Laughter's such a simple thing, yet so profound. When was the last time you laughed so deeply that it felt like it came from the very core of your being? The kind of laughter that lightens your soul, that makes you feel connected to the very essence of life. I remember a moment like that with my dear friend Betty, someone who's known me for years. Despite all the changes life threw at us, we always found joy in the simplest of things, especially during our movie nights. One evening, we were watching an old slapstick comedy, one of those films with silly, over-the-top humor. The scene that played out before us was so ridiculous, so absurd, that we couldn't stop laughing. It wasn't just a chuckle, it was a full, belly-shaking laugh that left us gasping for breath. And in that moment, everything else faded away. The worries, the stresses, the concerns about aging, none of it mattered. It was just us, two old friends, laughing together, and it felt so good, so pure. In Buddhism, laughter is often seen as a reflection of joy, an expression of freedom from the attachments and burdens of the mind. The Buddha himself is said to have laughed often, teaching his followers to embrace life's absurdities with a light heart. Laughter has a way of breaking down the walls we build around ourselves, reminding us that life, at its core, is meant to be enjoyed. It invites us to let go of our fears and anxieties and return to a state of childlike wonder. When we laugh, we live fully in the present moment, free from the weight of the past or the worry about the future. But here's the thing, in our later years, we often forget how to laugh. We get caught up in the seriousness of life, the challenges of aging, the pressures of maintaining our health or relationships. But laughter doesn't need to be tied to something grand. It's in the small moments, sharing a funny story with a friend, watching a light-hearted show, or even laughing at ourselves. It's a tool we all have access to, and it costs nothing but can heal so much. I met an elderly woman once at a meditation retreat who shared how laughter had been her medicine for years. "When I was younger, I worried too much," she said. "But as I grew older, I realized that laughter is the best way to clear the mind and lighten the heart." Her words resonated deeply with me. It's a reminder that we are never too old to find joy, to share a laugh, to lighten our hearts. So I encourage you to laugh often. Don't wait for a special occasion. Find joy in the little moments and let your laughter fill the space around you. Remember, laughter is a gift not just to yourself, but to everyone you share it with. When you laugh, you invite joy into your life and share that joy with the world. What makes you laugh? What moments in your life have brought you pure, unbridled joy? Take a moment to reflect on those times and think about how you can invite more laughter into your life today. Let go of the seriousness and remember, the more you laugh, the more you live. Tip number 4, build a routine, the wisdom of structure in aging. As we grow older, many of us find ourselves drifting, unsure of where each day will take us. Life can start to feel like a boat without a rudder, floating wherever the wind blows. I experienced this myself after retiring, when the structure that once defined my day's work, meetings, responsibilities, suddenly vanished. My days became aimless, and I found myself struggling with a sense of purpose. It was then that I realized something important. Having a routine, even a simple one, is crucial to maintaining a sense of balance and peace. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of discipline and mindfulness in every aspect of life. Routine is not just about ticking off a checklist, it's about creating harmony between your body and mind. I began with small steps. Something as simple as having a cup of coffee at 8 a.m. I looked forward to that first sip, that moment of calm before the day began. Afterward, I'd take a walk, not for exercise, but to clear my mind, and then, at noon, I'd read, allowing myself a few hours to escape into the pages of a good book. At first, it felt a little strange, like I was trying to force structure into a life that had been so free. But over time, I realized that it was through these small acts that I regained a sense of purpose. The rhythm of the day gave me something to look forward to, even in the simplest of things. I even began feeding the squirrels in my backyard, a small, simple act that brought me a sense of connection with the world around me. In Buddhist philosophy, Every moment is an opportunity to be mindful, to find meaning in the ordinary. The Buddha encouraged his followers to live with intention and presence, not to rush through life or become caught up in distractions. Having a routine, then, becomes a form of mindfulness. It's a way to slow down, to honor each moment, and to appreciate the beauty of the present. I recall a conversation I had with an elderly monk during a retreat, where I asked him how he kept his mind focused and peaceful despite his age. He smiled gently and said, "I find peace in simplicity. Every day I follow my routine. Quiet time, meditation, meals, rest. In that rhythm I find the stillness of the mind." His words left a lasting impression on me. It wasn't about filling his day with activities or trying to keep busy. It was about embracing each moment with intention, allowing his routine to guide him toward peace and clarity. I encourage you to create your own routine, something that fits your life and brings you peace. It doesn't need to be complex or rigid, just a series of small, mindful acts that bring structure and purpose to your day. Whether it's morning tea, a walk in nature, or a quiet moment of reflection, these moments can transform your day and your state of mind. What small acts of routine can you incorporate into your life today? Reflect on what brings you peace and structure, and consider how you can create more of that in your daily life. Tip number 5. Talk to someone. The Buddhist practice of connection. One of the most important aspects of our well-being, particularly as we grow older, is connection. There's a subtle art in reaching out to others that can seem difficult at times, especially when we've lived much of our lives thinking we need to handle things on our own. I was like that for years, keeping my feelings to myself, believing I shouldn't burden others with my troubles. I convinced myself that handling everything on my own was a form of strength, but in truth, it only left me feeling isolated and disconnected. The turning point came unexpectedly one day when my daughter called. We spoke for over an hour, not about anything profound, but about our daily lives, sharing laughs and small stories. That simple conversation was more powerful than any therapy session I had ever attended. I felt an immense weight lift from my shoulders, a quiet relief that only human connection can bring. That phone call reminded me that we are not meant to walk this path alone. In Buddhism, the importance of connection is deeply ingrained in the teachings. The Buddha often emphasized the idea of SA, the community of like-minded individuals who support one another in their spiritual journey. The Buddha knew that we thrive when we are part of a community that nurtures, uplifts, and listens. It is not just about speaking, it's about being heard, understood, and supported. Reaching out to others, whether it's a close friend, a family member, or even a stranger, allows us to share the burdens of life, even if only for a brief moment. I think of a story that one of my friends shared with me not long ago. She is in her late 70s and has spent much of her life as a caregiver, taking care of her children, her spouse, and her parents. She often felt that her needs were secondary, always putting others first. But one day, she realized that the weight of being constantly the caretaker had begun to drain her. She was physically and emotionally exhausted, so she reached out to a group of women in her community, women who, like her, had experienced the same challenges of aging, loss, and care. What she found was nothing short of transformational. Through sharing her experiences and listening to others, she began to feel a sense of renewal, a new bond that gave her strength and perspective. When we talk to someone, whether it's a conversation full of laughter or a moment of vulnerability, we release the emotional tension we've been carrying. It's a gift we give ourselves, a moment of human connection. Buddhism teaches us to recognize the interdependence of all beings. We are not isolated islands, we are interconnected. When we open ourselves up to others, we allow our hearts to heal and grow. So, if you're feeling lonely or burdened, don't keep it to yourself. Reach out, whether it's a simple phone call, a conversation with a neighbor, or even joining a group that shares your interests. Talking to someone can ease the heart. It reminds us that we are not alone, that we are part of something bigger. Who in your life can you reach out to today? Take a moment to think of someone you haven't connected with in a while, and make that call. Send that message. Share a little of your heart. It may just be the connection you both need. Tip number 6. Try something new. Embrace the spirit of adventure. It's easy to fall into the comfort of routine. As we get older, we become accustomed to certain habits, certain ways of doing things. And while that can bring stability, it can also lead to stagnation. I know this from personal experience. After retiring, I found myself going through the motions, feeling that excitement and curiosity I once had for life slowly slipping away. That's when I decided to step outside of my comfort zone, and the results were transformative. I signed up for a pottery class, something I never thought I'd do. Clay was messy. It was unpredictable, and I had no idea what I was doing, but that was the beauty of it. I laughed at myself as I fumbled with the clay, shaping something that was frankly a mess. The first bowl I made was lopsided, the sides uneven. But instead of feeling embarrassed, I felt a sense of freedom, a joy in trying something new, no matter how imperfectly I did it. That little bowl now sits on my shelf as a reminder that it's not about perfection. It's about embracing the process, allowing ourselves to grow, and experiencing life with the wide-eyed wonder of a child. In Buddhist teachings, we are encouraged to approach life with a sense of curiosity and openness. The Buddha spoke about the importance of embracing new experiences without fear or attachment to the outcome. This is known as the spirit of beginner's mind. The ability to approach life as if you are seeing everything for the first time, free from preconceived notions or judgments. Whether it's trying a new hobby, learning a new language, or simply taking a different route on your walk, stepping into the unknown invites growth and expansion. I think of a friend of mine, a woman in her 70s, who decided to take up painting after retirement. She was nervous at first, unsure of her ability, but she soon found herself completely immersed in the joy of creation. Her paintings weren't masterpieces, but the joy she found in them was priceless. She told me that painting brought her a new perspective on life, one that was vibrant, full of possibility, and unafraid of imperfection. It reminded her that life at any age is an adventure waiting to be explored. This is a lesson that Buddhism teaches us so clearly. Don't let fear or self-doubt hold you back. Life is not about perfection. It's about experience, learning, and embracing the journey. Trying something new can reignite that spark inside of you, reminding you that age is just a number. You are never too old to explore, to grow, or to discover a new passion. So ask yourself, what have you always wanted to try but held back from? Whether it's learning to dance, picking up a musical instrument, or simply taking up a new form of exercise, give yourself permission to explore. You don't have to be good at it right away. What matters is the willingness to embrace the adventure. The process itself will be more rewarding than the result. What new experience can you bring into your life today? Think about what excites you, even if it feels a little daunting. Take that first step. You might be surprised at where it leads you. Tip number 7, sleep like a champ. The power of restorative rest. There was a time when sleep felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. I'd lie in bed at night, eyes wide open, mind spinning with thoughts, worries about the future, regrets from the past, even mundane things like what to cook the next day. Sound familiar? It's something many of us face as we age. And yet, over time, I learned something powerful. Sleep is not just a bodily function, it is a sacred act of self-care. It's healing, restorative, and deeply spiritual when done with intention. One evening, after weeks of tossing and turning, I decided to try something different. Instead of watching TV until I dozed off or scrolling through my phone in the dark, I created a small nighttime ritual. I turned off the screens, dimmed the lights, and picked up an old book I loved. I sat in silence, sipping warm chamomile tea, allowing my body and mind to slow down. No distractions, just quiet. That night, I really slept, for the first time in what felt like years. And the next morning, I woke up not just rested, but renewed, like something inside me had been gently reset. Buddhism reminds us of the importance of balance, what's known as the middle way. Not too much, not too little. When we rest, we give our bodies time to repair, our minds time to settle, and our spirit time to find peace. The Buddha taught that mindfulness doesn't stop when the sun goes down. In fact, the moments before sleep can be some of the most powerful. They are opportunities to reflect on the day with gratitude, to release what no longer serves us, and to enter rest with a clear and open heart. I remember a teaching from a monk I once met in Thailand. He said, "Sleep with the same reverence you bring to meditation. Let your last thoughts before sleep be kind ones." That changed everything for me. I began ending each night with a silent thank you to my body for carrying me through the day, to my breath for sustaining me, and to the people I love, whether near or far. Since then, I've treated sleep like a gentle return to stillness. I've noticed that when I prioritize sleep, everything else in my life feels more manageable. My patience grows, my energy returns, and my mind becomes clearer like a calm lake after the wind has passed. So, if you're struggling with sleep, I invite you to turn your evening into a time of quiet ritual light. A candle, journal your thoughts, play soft music, whatever soothes your soul. Let it be a time where you unplug from the world and plug back into yourself. Ask yourself, what's keeping me up at night? And how can I create a space of peace before I rest? You don't need expensive solutions, just a few intentional choices that say, I matter enough to rest. Well, you've earned your rest, not just as a physical necessity, but as a spiritual practice. Sleep not just to recover, but to awaken more peaceful and whole with each new dawn. Tip number 8. Celebrate. You honor your journey. In the hustle of daily life, we often forget to pause and reflect on the journey we've walked. We are so focused on what comes next, what we need to accomplish, who we need to help, that we forget to celebrate how far we've come. But here's the truth. You are worthy of celebration. Your life, with all its ups and downs, its challenges and triumphs, deserves to be honored. And the act of celebrating yourself, whether big or small, is a gift of self-compassion and gratitude. I remember a particularly tough week where everything seemed to go wrong. My energy was drained, and I felt like I was running on empty. But then, one evening, I did something unexpected. I treated myself to a slice of my favorite pie. It wasn't for any special occasion, just because I had made it through the week. And in that moment, I realized something profound. It wasn't the pie that mattered. It was the act of acknowledging my resilience, of celebrating my strength, even in the midst of difficulty. In Buddhism, the concept of mudra, or sympathetic joy, encourages us to take joy not only in the happiness of others, but also in our own growth and accomplishments. The Buddha himself was not only a teacher of compassion, but also of celebrating life's small victories. Whether it's overcoming a personal struggle, learning something new, or simply getting through a difficult day, there is always something worth celebrating. In fact, it's often the small victories that carry the most weight in our lives. A few years ago, I met a woman at a meditation retreat who had spent most of her life caring for others, her children, her spouse, her community. She was known for her generosity and her selflessness, but she often overlooked her own needs. During the retreat, I watched as she began to slowly realize that she too needed to be celebrated. She started by acknowledging the strength it took to care for others and the resilience she had shown throughout her life. She didn't need grand gestures. A simple thank you to herself was enough to spark a change. That shift in perspective not only brought her peace, but also a deeper sense of fulfillment. We need to remember that the act of celebrating ourselves isn't about arrogance or pride. It's about gratitude and recognition. It's about saying to yourself, "I've made it this far. I am still here. I am still strong. I am still growing." This doesn't mean waiting for a significant event or achievement. It means taking time to recognize the daily strength it takes to live with grace, to show up each day with love and patience. So today, I encourage you to celebrate yourself. Don't wait for a special occasion or someone else's validation. Celebrate your resilience, your kindness, your wisdom. Celebrate the fact that you've lived through so much, and yet you're still here, ready to embrace whatever comes next. Maybe it's a quiet moment of reflection, or maybe it's sharing a story with a friend. Perhaps it's treating yourself to something small but meaningful, like a favorite treat, a walk in nature, or even just a moment of stillness. What can you celebrate today? Reflect on the little victories you've had, the growth you've experienced, and take a moment to appreciate yourself. Life is not just about getting through the tough times. It's about honoring all the times you've made it through and come out stronger. You deserve to feel proud of yourself every single day. After all, your journey is a testament to your strength, your wisdom, and your unshakable spirit. What will you celebrate about yourself today? Let's take this moment to honor the beautiful soul that you are as you journey through the later years of your life. Remember that aging is not about slowing down. It's about deepening your experience, living with intention, and embracing each moment with mindfulness. The tips we've discussed today are simple yet powerful: walking with purpose, nourishing your body with love, laughing often, creating a fulfilling routine, and reaching out for meaningful connections. These are the practices that will help you not just grow older, but grow wiser, more content, and more connected to the world around you. I encourage you to reflect on these practices. Start small, but start today. Remember, each step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to a life filled with peace, strength, and joy. In Buddhism, every moment is an opportunity to grow, and the years ahead are no exception. Take care of your body, nourish your mind, and live in the present, for it is in the present where true transformation occurs. So, what are you waiting for? What small change will you make today to honor yourself and embrace this new chapter of your life? I'd love to hear your thoughts and the practices that have helped you find peace and joy in your own journey. Leave a comment below, and let's continue to explore the wisdom of mindful living together. And if you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us on this path of quiet wisdom. Together, we'll explore how Buddhist teachings can help us live more fulfilling, peaceful lives, no matter our age. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next.